Electricity is one of the major hazards in our field, not only in our companies, at our workplace, but also in our homes. We are dealing everywhere with the electricity. So what are the major hazards of electricity and what are the precautions we need to carry out according to the requirement of OSHA? We need to understand, right? Starting with some basic concept like what is the volt? Volt is the electrical force. So how much is the force or how much is the pressure which the electrons are, placing for to move them. Then we have current. Current is the major amount of current, amount of electron, right? Then the unit for current is ohm. So how
Ampere.
many electron? Yes, how many electrons?
Ampere.
Sorry, ampere. For the current, it's ampere. For the voltage, it's volt. Uh, how many electrons are available? This is our magnitude, and this magnitude is basically our current. And to how much force they
6.25
are.
into 10 to the power 18 electrons.
Yeah. We are just discussing the definition. Then about the voltage, how much is the pressure these electrons are pulling so they can move together. We have different volts. We have volts in even in kVAs. We have starting from very small volt to very high power volts. And then we have ohm. Ohm is the resistance, the unit for resistance, which uh, it is basically the opposition in the movement of electron. So V is equal to IR, right? Voltage is directly proportional to current if the resistance is remains constant. So this is also called Ohm law. Then we have GFCI. What is GFCI? GFCI is a ground fault circuit interrupter. It is the same device like any other circuit which we are going to install in our electrical socket. But the purpose of GFCI, it is not going to protect or save the human being, but this purpose of this GFCI device is basically to, whenever there is any change in the ground, there is any fault in the grounding. For example, if the input is not equal to output due to the grounding issues, this device is going to be initiated, and it is initiated with very high speed, which is 1:40 of a second. So this is going to make the disconnection between the our source of electricity and the socket, so our device is going to be safe. Similarly, if you are handling the device, so if there is no electricity in the device, there is no current in the device, you will also be safe. But the purpose for GFCI is basically to save our equipment and instrument. How electricity flows? Electricity flows, it is in the same way. You can see this example, that just like we are watering the plant, we are watering the plants in the garden. So the voltage is the how much is the pressure from on which we are going to supply the plants, the pressure of water, and then how much is the flow rate. For example, in 1 minute, how many gallons are going, how many liters are going. This is our flow. The more dia, which means the more flow. And similarly, resistance, the more larger the hose or the more wide dia, which means the less resistance. So our electricity also flows in the same way, like we have watering the plant in our gardens. Now, hazards of electricity. Electrical shock is one of the major hazard of electricity. We all know that this is a very common hazard, and in our childhood or in our life, at least all of us has gone through with one time, not very severe, but at least we have experienced this voltage, this electrical shock directly or within our family. So electrical shock is one of the hazard which is most of the time it is being ignored in our homes or uh, also at our workplace, because most of us we don't have the awareness, or we think that the things seems to be fine, so we are going to ignore them. But in case of any accident, this can cause you severe injury or up to the death. uh, it is says that if you have electrical shock, and due to this electrical shock, if your body is less than 30% is burned, the chance for the survival of for a human body is very less. So electrical shock is very dangerous. We have seen the people. I personally I used to go to hospital for the audit purpose, where they have the burn unit, and in this burn unit we have seen many cases for electrical shock. So electrical shock is one of the hazard. Yes, Saddam.
Hello, sorry to interrupt, Ms. Anas. I was wondering about ground fault circuit interceptors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I mean, what else we can know on that topic? Is there
We
something else?
no we in our proceeding slide we will also discuss the same thing, how it works, right? So electrical shock is one of the hazard. Electricity travel in closed circuit normally through a conductor, and our body is also a very good conductor of electricity. The more mass you will have in your body, which means the more uh, flow of electron will be more easier. The more bones you will have if you are smart, if you are thin. So which means there will be difficult for the flow of electron. So whenever we are in contact with electricity, uh, we don't know from where the electricity is going into our body. For example, most of the time, the more conductor we have, sometimes we are wearing the chains, sometimes we are wearing the rings, we are wearing the belts. These all are causes of. These are all metals. These are all very good conductor of electricity. So if any of these parts is going to come in contact with electricity, it will enter in our body. And whenever electricity is enter in a body, we don't know which path it is going to take to go out. Most of the time, it goes out from our legs, our foot, because of our knee has very strong bone, which means very strong resistance. Sometimes it enters from right hand and it goes out from left hand. Sometimes it enters from right hand and it goes out from right leg or the left leg. So sometimes it is going to enter from the left hand and it is going to take out from right side. So we never know which path is going to be taken by the electricity while it is in our body. But the more traveling of electricity in our body, which means more disaster, which means more losses in our body. There are many factors which can influence the electricity or the severity of electrical shock, which includes voltage. The higher the voltage, the greater the current, which means that the more electrons are going to be distributed in our body, and the more force is going to be applied by due to the voltage. So which means that more disaster in our body. Duration, the more time we are going to expose, the more electrons will be entering in our body. So exposure with the electrical appliance or electricity is also very dangerous. Whenever we have exposure, we try to break the contact with the human body with the electricity as soon as possible. Current part, the route that electricity is going to take through the body. Frequency, the AC current. Resistant, skin condition, and clothing. For example, the more drier our skin, the more problem for us. Sometimes we have static charge. If you see in the when especially in the winter season, we have static charge in our body because the skin is most of the time it's dry. Contact surface area, the more skin that is in contact, the more severe the injury. Similarly, we have some environmental factors like metal surface, humidity, etc. So these are some of the factors which can influence the severity of shock. How electrical current affect our body? Like 0.001 amperes, which means a perception level. We can say this perception level is like uh, if you have experienced sometime you are going to take out the battery of your watch or very small battery and you touch it with your tongue, you feel something. You basically enjoy this thing. So this is our perception level where you will just come to know that yes, the electrons are available there. Then we have 0.005, we can say slight shock, but not painful but disturbing. This shock Sometimes we can experience that when we are coming out of the washrooms or the toilets and our hands are wet, or during the rainy seasons when there is a lot of moisture in the electrical sockets and electrical boards are there, and you are going to use any plug or you are going to press any button, so this kind of electrical shock are possible, and we feel it that yes, something has happened. Instead of enjoying, we feel that there is an electrical shock. Then 0.006 to 0.025 in the women, because women have more masses as compared to men. So even 0.006 to 0.025 could be painful shock on muscular control is lost. In men, we have 0.009 to 0.03. We call it freezing current or let go range. Now you will feel the current. If you are in any of the factor which we have discussed in last slide, it is going to be increased. It can have severe effect on our body. Then we have 0.0502 to zero point 0.01 ampere, which means extreme pain and respiratory arrest. So in this case, a person can die. We can have very severe shock, and we can have a, a badly injured or badly affected by the electricity, or even the death is possible. 1 to 4.3 ventricular fibrillation, we can have the heart attack. The things are going to be very severe, and if even 10 ampere of current can cause you cardiac arrest, severe burn, or probably the death. So most of the time in our devices, when we see in our homes electrical devices, we are using electronics devices, most of the time there is 3 ampere, there is 4 ampere uh, you know uh, circuits are there. So these even 3 ampere, 4 ampere are very dangerous for us, and uh, from the number we can see that it is very less number, 3 or 4, but they can cause you death. We can see that there are many accidents of mobile phone when the battery is going to be bursted. So this battery is not much voltage, but when it is going to have burst, there are losses of human life, there are badly injuries are involved. Yes, guys, any question?
No, no.
No, no.
Okay. Another hazard of electricity is the burns. After the electrical shock, we have electrical burns. Electrical burns are possible whenever we have our tissues are going to be damaged. This can cause due to the result of heat generated by the flow of electric current through the body. Electrical burns are one of the most serious injuries you can receive and need to receive immediate medical attention, because when you are having the burn, which means that you are now affected with two conditions. One itself is the shock, and the other is the burn. So now the situation become more dangerous. You can see the example of this hand. Whenever this hand is not basically burned due to the only due to the high temperature, but whenever we have high voltage and our body comes in contact, so due to the electrical shock, sometimes the severity is too much that our body is going to be burned. High temperature near the body produced by an electrical arc or explosion can cause arc or flash burn. For example, when you are near the high voltage, cables, when you are with a high source of voltage, for example, uh, 10 kVA lines, 100 kVA lines. So these are having some arc flash. So there is a you can say electrical field around these wires. So if we are not directly going to touch these wire or cables, still uh, in the magnet, in this electrical field, we have the current available, and if we are going to come in contact with this, we will get the electrical shock, we will get the electrical burn. Thermal contact burns occur when skin comes in contact with overheat electrical equipment. Yesterday, one of you have given the picture of electrical socket where multiple chargers were there. So this kind of things are common, and we don't take it seriously. We most of the time we ignore it. So the example for this multiple chargers with one socket is the same thing, that your car has capacity for 4 people and you are driving the car with 8 people. So then what will be the impact on the engine? And maybe for some time this car will be traveling fine, but after some time, maybe the tire is going to be burst, or there will be more load on the engine, and in the passage of time, this can cause you some accident, or this can cause you some uh, unavoidable situation. So these kind of ones are very common, especially these kind of ones are also going to be occur. They are going to be produce the fire hazard. If you see in hotels most of the time, where you will find in one room there is one socket or maximum two sockets, and whenever we are going to stay in the hotel and we want to have everything to be with the electrical socket, so we connect with the extension cords. Even in our offices we do the same thing. With one wire we have multiple extensions going on, and on this different extensions we have different voltage devices and instruments which are connected. So they are going to cause the burns. When they are going to be heated or overheated, if there is any carpet which is in contact with these wires, most of the time in hotels the wires are going under the carpet. You will find many curtain in hotel rooms. So the wires are behind the behind the curtains in the hotel, or even in our homes. So they, whenever they are going to be overheated, our uh, the fuel is going to start burn, because curtain, carpet, or the papers, or sometimes the cabinets. Have you seen the many times in files in the rooms? The files are too many files are there. So whenever there is any short circuit in the room, it will cause the burning very frequently, because we have lot of record available, lot of uh, fuel source of fuels are available, which can cause the burning. So this burning is not only impacting on the human itself, but this burning is also going to impact the fire accident within the company or within the workplace. And many times, whenever you see the cases of fire, most of the time they are going to start with the electrical short circuit, or which is due to the overloading or due to some issues in the electrical circuits. The third hazard, major hazard of electricity, is the internal injuries. Internal injuries, most of the time, they are not going to be visible. You cannot see them clearly, right? But the person who has this internal injuries, he is the one who is going to feel. But if you are strong enough, you are a young man and you have strong muscles, it might be possible for some time even you will not feel it. So most of the time internal injuries are not going to be appear at once or just after the injury. They are going to be appear after 40 minutes, after 50 minutes, after 1 hour, or up to 2 hours. So the doctors recommend that whenever we have any electrical shock which causing you internal injuries, so don't allow the victim to sleep, because it might be possible he is going to sleep and he may be sleep forever. So let him awake, so he will know where is the pain. So he will know maybe there is some problem with the cardiac arrest, maybe some problem with the high blood pressure, and maybe some internal organs or the bones are going to be damaged, so which are not going to coming out very easily, or just in just after the accident. So internal injuries are causing our too much disaster in our body. We need to be very careful whenever we have any internal injury case. It is highly recommended that we need to consult with the doctor, even if the physically, if the person is okay, he is not having physically you are not be able to see any of the damages or the injuries on his body. But still, if this electrical shock is having sufficient quantity, for example more than 4 ampere, 5 ampere, which means that now it can have some impact on our internal injuries, and we need to seek the medical attention, and we need to have a checkup with the doctor. Now we have ground fault and circuit interrupter, GFCI. GFCI is one of the requirement in US, that for the industrial sockets it is needed. We can see that how GFCI is going to be work. From what we can see is like that, this socket, but in actual this GFCI, this is connected with the ground, and this one is the neutral. Whenever there is a difference between this incoming and outgoing, for example this is the 2 ampere which is incoming, and in outgoing we have 1.95, right? So whenever there is a difference between incoming and outgoing, this device is going to be initiated, and this device is going to be initiated very fast. It works on the principle of amperes. It is mainly going to calculate the amperes, and once it is going to be initiated, it it breaks the contact between the body, the electricity, and the equipment which is connected to this electrical shock. So in all the situation we have input is equal to output. Yes, this is a very good point by the Melvin. So sometimes we get confused that GFCI is maybe some device which we are going to measure the current, or we are going to use to measure the voltage or resistance. But these are not like multimeter or ammeter. These are like our circuit breaker, which are fixed with our socket, and the the main job for them, remember, if you see in your homes, you have the circuit breakers available. So these circuit breakers are also working on the principle that whenever there is a high voltage or whenever there is a low voltage which is needed for the distribution, they are going to be initiate, and this breaker gets down. And whenever we have uh, less amount of current, okay, whenever we have less amount of current, then these breaker are going to be ignited or initiated. So then you have to check the inputs and outputs. While in simple words, I can say that GFCI, ground fault circuit interrupter, is basically a circuit which is fixed in the socket. And since our electrical devices or electrical wiring in our homes or industries are connected with the ground, so this grounding, whenever there is a change in the grounding from input to output, this circuit is going to be initiated. And once this circuit is going to be initiated, it will break the contact between the electricity and the equipment. So in this case, our equipment is going to be safe, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So in US and also here in our kingdom, industrial sockets, most of the time they are having this GFCI protection, which is going to save our equipment, because our equipment which is connected with the sockets in industries, these are very expensive and we cannot afford any of the breakdown. So that's why we need to install such kind of uh, electrical socket which can save the equipment as well. Okay. Also, there is, if you, some of you are already in the field, sometimes have you seen that whenever you are going to be have the excavation, there are some utilities lines are going on. So whenever there are the electricity lines underground going on, you will find that before 1 feet of the main cable, the Saudi electricity, they have the yellow and black tape, right? Plastic tape available, which is the indicator that there are electrical cables going on. So you can see and you can stop your excavation, or you need to take care while you are doing the excavation activities, and under as a excavation or under the ground. So grounding all power systems, electrical sockets and electrical equipment. Do not remove pins, prongs or from cord and plug connected with electrical equipment or extension cords. Always use double insulated tools. Ground all exposed metal parts of the equipment so we can be safe with the grounding hazard. Avoid contact with power lines. Whenever you are going to perform the activities, always locate the power lines in your area. Prior to digging, call the utilities. For may be possible there are telecom lines are going on. It might be possible there are some electrical lines are going on. So many of the utility nowadays we have also fiber optics. So many types of utility lines are possible whenever you are going to perform the digging or uh, uh, whenever you are going to perform the excavation. So if uncertain, then keep yourself and all objects at least 20 feet away from the all insulated energized line. When we don't know how much is the power of this energized line, then in this case, and if this is energized but uninsulated, if it is insulated, then 2 feet is enough, right? But if it is uninsulated, for example, when you are going in the remote areas, when you go outside the cities, you will find many, for example, from Jeddah to when you are going towards Rabigh, or from Dammam you are going towards Jubail. So in the deserts, in the remote areas, you will find the heavy electrical cables are there, power lines are there. So which are basically our transmission line, distribution lines, which are connecting the source of electricity, the powerhouse, to the main cities. So this is how we get the electricity in our companies. This is how we get the electricity in our homes. So if you are uncertain and it is uninsulated line, then keep yourself and your work object away at least 20 feet. And if you know it is like 50 kVA, up to 50 kV, then we need to have 10 feet away. And if it is between 50 to 350 kV, then we need to have 50 feet away. Why we need to have the more distance when we have more power? Can anyone give the answer? Why it is not only 20 feet for all? We have 10 feet for 50 kV when we
More
have,
current.
sorry?
More current.
More current. Yeah, it's okay, more current, but and there is another reason why. Yes, electrical
Electromagnetic.
guys.
Same thing. Why
Electromagnetic.
you?
Exactly, electromagnetic field, the electrical
Yes.
field which is going to be produced due to this high number of electrons are there. So that's why the
Thermal
more,
contact, to avoid thermal contact burn.
also to avoid thermal contact, but since these are already in air, these are
Yeah.
above the normal height. So even in this case, the electrical field is very strong. It can cause you arc flash accidents. So that's why we need to keep away. So have power lines de-energized and grounded prior to the beginning of work. Use non-conductive ladder and other tools while you are working near the power lines or on the power lines, even if these are disconnected. What to do in case of emergency? Don't touch the casualty, because it might be possible that still there is current within its body. So we need to avoid the casualty. Or sometimes we get too much sympathetic with our friends or with our any of the colleague. He is touching, or he is getting in contact with electricity, and we want to throw him away by using our own bare hands, which means that we are also getting electricity transfer. So whenever there is a situation comes when any of your colleague or any other guy who comes in contact, we need to avoid touching the casualty. We need to first turn off the power line, make the disconnection between the power line and that body, and then after some time we can touch them. Isolate the power supply, call for the ambulance, and check for breathing. If the breathing is okay, then we can start our normal activities, for example giving him water, and start talking with him to check his situation. But if he is not be able to take the breath clearly, then we need to start our CPR. So CPR rule is like after 20 press, we need to have one breath. So we need to apply this minimum 4 times until the person gets the normal breathing. But by the time we need to inform the authorities and we need to call the ambulance, so we need to seek the medical help. So then if there are any burns, we need to treat those burns. Most of the time, if you don't know about the first aid, if you don't know how to do the medical assistance to anyone, then don't try to make your experiment. In our society, mashallah, most of us are 50% doctors and 50% mufti by default. So if you don't know how to do the first aid, if you don't know how to treat the burns, do not experiment. Try to remove the clothes. So at least the things which the clothes shall not be touched with the injuries. Then treat for the physical shock and ensure medical help is obtained. Don't forget, when you are going to start CPR or when you are going to start the treatment for any of the victim or casualty, before starting this activity, you need to call for the help. You need to call the ambulance. You need to call the medical attention. So by the time you are going to apply the treatment, this medical help is going to be available, and it might be possible that the things will not be under your control or you are not expert of these things. So they will come and they will start their procedure, or and it might be possible they will take him or take her to the hospital as well. These are some of the contact numbers in Saudi Arabia. Now in Jeddah we have, Jeddah and Makkah we have 911. So whenever you are going to call 911, one number, so then they give you the menu that to press. For the fire, press 1, for the police, press 2, for the traffic police, press 3, like that. But I think in Riyadh still we have different numbers available for different purpose. So if you are not a technical person, if you are not a skilled technician, or if you are not an electrical engineer, then in this case, no need to open the electrical sockets, no need to open the electrical things. What we need to do, we need to check physically for the damage. If there is any damage with the sheet, if there is any damage with the plug or with the joints, or if there is any contamination is available, or we find any burns, or the equipment is going to be heat up. So we can see the physically we can see the physical checks whenever we are going to use the that equipment or that power tool. And if we are we are skilled in electrical, we are qualified technician, we are qualified engineer, and we know how the principle of electricity is working, and we can open the nuts and we can then close the nuts, and we can open the circuit breaker easily. So we can do the user check plus, which means to make the inspection in more detail. So in companies we have the system available. For example, sometimes companies they have the quarterly electrical inspection for all the equipments or for all the plugs and sockets they are going to make, where the company authorized qualified electrical inspector or electrical technicians, they are going to check all, and they are going to provide the maintenance if it is needed. Yes, guys. What is the minimum distance should be maintained between a scaffold and energized power line?
3 meter.
In feet?
In feet, 20.
Yes. Any other?
Yeah. Because we don't know if insulated or not insulated, so 20 feet.
Energized means uninsulated. No?
Uninsulated?
20.
20
So
feet.
by default is 20. No need to calculate, right? The one thing which we can memorize, that by default, if it is uninsulated, then it will be 20 feet. What is GFCI? GFCI stands for?
Mr. Anas, we said that it's related with kVA. If it's between 15 kVA and 315 kVA, it should be 15 feet.
50.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
So it's related to number of kVA that we have.
See,
Now-
it is the case when we know the kVA, but if we don't know the kVA, then
20 feet.
right? Yes. In this case, when we don't know the kVA, then it will be 20 feet.
Okay, thank you.
So GFCI stands for?
Ground, fault circuit interrupter.
Very good. GFCI are used to measure the capacity of electrical shock in case of short circuit.
No, it didn't measure.
No.
No.
Okay, maybe it measured less than 5 milliampere, but the main role is not to measure, is to interrupt the current.
That's a difference, no, between going and returning. That 0.005 ampere.
Right. So basically GFCI is not a measuring device, right? It is only a circuit breaker. So this one is false.
Yes.
Okay, guys. Now I will show you the video and then we will proceed further. See the screen and listen the sound. Shall we proceed further? It's a very long video. I think you already have it in your videos. Yes, guys, are you hearing?
Yes. 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 Okay.
Yes.
Very good. So our next topic is about HAZCOM. HAZCOM, remember the word hazard,
Communication.
hazard communication, the communication which becomes hazardous, right? Like we are communicating with each other. If we become aggressive and we get angry, so our communication will become hazard communication. So it's not like that. Hazard communication is basically related to the hazardous material. When we say hazardous material, which means anything which can cause human health as harm, right? And most of the time when we have hazard communication, we use it in chemicals. We use for the word of chemicals, we use for the word of petrochemicals. Like it could be in the form of liquid, solid, gas, vapors, dust, mist. So hazard communication is about those hazards which are inherent with the material. So these are the properties of material which makes them hazardous, right? For the hazard communication in OSHA, we have a full standard within the OSHA, which is going to discuss hazard communication. We call it HAZCOM, which is HCS 29 CFR 1910 section to 1200. In 2012, it was derived, and this hazard communication standard gives the responsibility, or it gives the, it address 4 issues or 4 requirements. The major 4 requirements are: the first thing is the hazard communication program, then labels and other forms of warnings, safety data sheet, and information and training. This hazard communication requires the responsibilities of 3 parties. One of the party is the company who is manufacturing this hazardous material or hazardous chemical. For example, in our case, we have Sabic, we have Sadara, we have in Yambo, we have NetPet, right? These are the manufacturing companies who are basically manufacturing the chemicals, and then they are selling it to their distributors. So it is this standard defines the responsibility for this manufacturer. What is the responsibility of this manufacturer? To develop 2 things with their chemical. What are these 2 things? Number 1 is the label, right? And the other thing is to have MSDS available. MSDS is material safety data sheet. In other words, we can also say SDS or MSDS. Don't confuse with these words. These are same. When we say more formally, we call it MSDS. In journal, we say SDS. Or in UK, the companies, they use the word MSDS. In USA, most of the time they use SDS to be more easy. So when we have the material available, it is the responsibility of the company who is producing this chemical or material to develop the label, the warning sign, and the MSDS. Now, when the chemical is being manufactured, it goes to their distributors. If you ask direct Sadara that I need this chemical, they will say, sorry, we cannot deal with you directly. Go with our authorized distributor in your country and they will provide you the chemical. They will take from us in bulk and then they will provide you on retail like any other companies they do. So in this case, it is the responsibility of distributor to take the MSDS and label with that chemical manufacturing company. So now since the chemical is in their facility, so it is their responsibility to take the chemical label and MSDS with them. Once now you are requesting to purchase the chemical or this material, now with this distributor, it comes to your facility. When it comes to your facility, you have certain responsibilities and you have more responsibilities than the manufacturer and the distributor. So what are your responsibilities? Your responsibilities. Just a minute. My daughter is coming in. She's making me laugh. So the responsibilities of our company when we are going to purchase these chemicals or these materials, our responsibilities are more than those two parties. What are our responsibilities? The first responsibility is to get the MSDS from them. Second responsibility is to get the label and warning sign to them. See, 99% they are going to provide you with their chemicals. Definitely label is already on the can, or if you are purchasing the drum, or if you are purchasing the large can, it is already there on the cans or drums. But when you are purchasing, sometimes MSDS is missed, so no problem, you can ask your procurement department to take the MSDS from the distributor directly, so they can take the MSDS as well. Now when it comes in your facility, you need to have these two things available, and apart from these two things, your responsibility is to develop a hazard communication program, right? Hazard communication program. And after hazard communication program, we need to provide the information and training to our staff, how to use this chemical or how to use this material in a safe manner. So these are for our responsibilities. Our manufacturer has the responsibility to develop the label and MSDS. Our distributor has the responsibility to take the label and MSDS from the manufacturer. And we as an employer, we have the responsibility to take these two things. And then once it comes in our facility, we need to develop the hazard communication program, and we need to provide the information and training to our staff on how to deal with this hazardous chemical. Clear? Now,
crystal clear. Yeah.
hazard communication program is a very simple thing, not very complicated. It is, remember we discussed last time, PPE program. So it is the same thing, that we need to identify all the possible hazards, and we need to provide the precautions, and if possible, we can provide them in the form of pictures. We can put where the people are working, so they can be aware of these things. After the awareness session, we can post the pictures, the labels, the signages there, so these people can be aware of what the chemical they are going to use and what they have to do in case of emergency with this chemical. And this information you will get from the MSDS easily. We will also discuss MSDS in just a while. Form of hazardous substances. See, we can protect ourselves once we are clear about the forms of hazardous substances. We need to understand that what is the form of hazardous substance when we are using or when it comes in our company. For example, it could be in the form of dust, it could be in the form of fume, it could be in the form of gas, it could be in the form of solid, liquid, vapor, mist. Another form of hazardous substance is the, apart from dust, another form is the, we call it asbestos, right? Fiber. So we have the fiber in asbestos. The problem with dust that it can reduce, right? It can be avoided by using mask, okay, or by normal, we in our nasal system, in our nose, we have a natural filter available, right? We have the nose hair available, which are going to protect our respiratory system. Whenever we have contact with dust, when you go outside in a dusty area, what will happen? This dust is going to be stop on your nose and you will get is this so now this our filter is going to be clear, or when we are going to wash our face, or when we are going to do the wudu, our this filter is going to be clean. So similarly, but at the same time, when this dust is in the form of fiber, when this dust is in the form of asbestos, our nasal system naturally can stop the particles which are more than 5 microns, right? Which are more than 5 microns. But the asbestos, the fibers are less than 5 microns. So these are going to have, impact on our body. They cannot stop without any protection, and they can enter in our body and they can cause damage of our respiratory system. Different fiber have different effect, and very common in the construction or in the project sites is the asbestos, because we have the asbestos sheets. In cement we have the asbestos, in cemented pipes we have the asbestos. In the construction itself, when we have the demolishing activities, we have lot of dust there, we have asbestos available. In sand we have silica. Silica is also cancer causing, but asbestos is more dangerous as compared to silica. In UK, asbestos is banned, right?
Yeah,
In
prohibited,
UK,
yeah.
asbestos is banned, but in USA it is not banned. In fact, USA is one of the highest producer of asbestos. So again, it's an economic war. We cannot say anything. We should be in our country, in kingdom, they say that it is banned, but you can use it, limited use, you can use on a limited way. And in UK they have the international protocols that those things which are manufacturing of asbestos, you need to have a asbestos phase out plan available. So in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, you will make the asbestos phase out plan, and after that you need to reduce the use of asbestos within your company or within your workplace. Sometimes if you go to old areas, if you go to villages, we have the asbestos sheets available. Especially if you go to India, Pakistan, in the villages, they use asbestos sheets. Asbestos sheets has very good strength. Uh, they have very good strength against sunlight. They have very good strength against the water, rain. So once you are having asbestos sheets, now forget about like 25-30 years, your roof is safe. So many of the homes, the small homes, where they don't have the second floor, or they are not multi-story, so they have asbestos. And also similarly, we have the warehouses available where the sheets are asbestos, because it is very cheaper solution as compared to the full concrete roof. This asbestos sheets are the cheaper solution. But nowadays we have the galvanized sheets. If you see everywhere, whenever we have the warehouses, whenever we have such kind of stores, we use galvanized sheets. These galvanized sheets are also good protection against heat and sun, and if you make the paint on them, so this will be more protected. So these these are also very cheaper, so these are also very popular nowadays. Now you can see with the galvanized sheets we are using in washing machine, in all our appliances at home. And with the help of galvanizing sheets, we have the camps are also being manufactured, offices are also being manufactured. Those temporary setups we can have with the galvanized sheets, and these are very quick way to manufacture anything, and also the dismantling is very easier as compared to the cement or the concrete. So anyway, these are just forms of hazardous material. We should know them so we can protect ourselves, right? If we know that the hazardous material in the form of dust, then we will apply the controls according to dust. If we know that the hazardous material is in the form of fiber, we are going to apply the control in the form of fiber. So we should know what kind of hazardous material we are going to use. In companies where the chemicals are involved, we can have more than 50 chemicals, we can have more than 70 chemicals, 20, 30 chemicals are normally in all the companies. So because the cleaning chemicals which you are using for the cleaning purpose for your bathroom, for the floor, these are also comes in the categorization of hazardous material. We need to be careful while we are going to use them. The bleaching, the bleach, this Clorox, these are all coming under the category of hazardous material. So we need to be very careful while we are going to use. Routes of entry. Now we understand the forms of material. So definitely this material is going to enter in our body from some route. So what could be those routes? For example, if it is going to be entered through our mouth by eating or by drinking, it will be ingestion. It will be considered as ingestion. If it is going to enter in our body through our breath, through our nose, it will be considered as inhalation. So for example, dust we are going to inhale. Similarly, if it is going to be absorbed through our eyes or skin or any other membranes, so it will be considered as the phenomena of absorption. And if it is a physical puncture or cut, in this case, if the hazardous material is entering in our body, it will be considered as the injection. So after knowing the forms of material, we should also know the routes of entry in our body so we can protect them. Now we have the corona everywhere, so we can see that it can go with ingestion and inhalation. That's why we are covering our nose and mouth. And those people who are surrounded, who are dealing with the public all the time, if you see now, most of them, they have started wearing the full face shields. I have seen even on medical stores, Nahdi, I went yesterday to Nahdi, I've seen that these guys are wearing the full face shield. So this is because we are in contact with the people for very short period of time, and after that we come back to our home and we are washing our faces and our hands and our body. But those people who are dealing with the people all the time, they have to be more precautious. So there are multiple routes which are possible that the hazardous material can enter in our body. Now we have safety data sheet. Safety data sheet or material safety data sheet is a very good document, is a very useful document which comes with the chemical. Remember, according to the hazard communication standard, it is the responsibility of the manufacturer to produce it. Then it is a responsibility of distributor to distribute it, and as an employer, it is our responsibility to have it. There are 2-3 requirements which comes with the safety data sheet, which I have seen with my experience, that the thumb rule for safety data sheet or material safety data sheet, that it should be available at point of use. When we say point of use, which means that where you are going to use this material or where you are going to use this chemical, your MSDS should be available. During the audit, we have come across many times with the lame arguments that material safety data sheet is in the quality department and chemical is being used in the operations department. Material safety data sheet is in our manager's folder in the manager office, and the people are using the chemical in the operations area or any other area. In the laboratories, the people, the staff, laboratory staff, they are using the chemical, and the material data sheet is in the computer of quality manager who is absent today. So these kind of issues are highly unacceptable. They are the high level violations of OSHA standard. So whenever you are using the material, hazardous material or the chemical, MSDS should be available at point of use. When we say point of use, which means at the same workplace. Maybe you are working on one table, so MSDS is on the other side of the table. It's okay, no problem. The MSDS is available on the cabinet or on the folder which is near to you, because You cannot learn the whole MSDS. It's a long document. It has 15 sections normally. So you cannot learn the whole document. So that's why you can have a good information about some of the sections, but maybe in your laboratory you have more than 100 chemicals. Some are in small quantity, some are in large quantity. You are using it on daily basis. So how can every staff can remember all the hazards of these chemicals? So that's why MSDS should be available all the time at the point of use. The second thing which is very necessary to about the MSDS, that it should be in the local language. So because if the purpose, MSDS is not our procedure. MSDS is not a confidential document, right? MSDS is a journal document. It's a public document. So it is for everyone who is dealing with the chemical. So if the people who are working with this chemical or this hazardous material, if they don't know how to use the MSDS or what is written in the MSDS document, then this MSDS is useless. What we suggest as a consultant, I suggest my clients that whenever you have the MSDS available, okay, keep them in one folder, it's okay. But at the same time, carried out some common hazards and make the pictorial presentation for these things and paste with on the walls which are near the where the people are using these chemicals. So for example, all the acids, right, most of them will have the same hazards. All the bases, they have the same hazards. So we can carry out some the major hazards and we can put them on the wall in the form of charts, in the form of notice boards, that while you are dealing with the acids, these are the common hazards, in the form of pictures, because the pictures are always have very good impact on our minds, and these are easy to understand, rather than you will make the training and awareness one time. After that, after 3 days, the workers, they forget everything. So if these are available in the form of pictures, pictograms, then it will be very easier to understand. And similarly, what are the precautions or what are the emergency actions we need to do when it goes in our eyes, or it is going to touch our body, or it is going to spill on the ground? What actions we need to do? We can paste these things in our department, so it will be very easier for the workers or the staff who are working in the surrounding, that they should know what to do in case of this chemical. To have the detailed demonstration about each section of MSDS, I will show you the video so you can have a better idea about this MSDS. Now you can see this is the example of MSDS on the left hand side. You can see one of the example of very simple MSDS. Nowadays it is very easier to get the MSDS. You just write the chemical name on the manufacturer side. For example, you are purchasing some chemical from the SABIC. So on the SABIC website, you will find the MSDS, or you can just email them. They will send you the updated MSDS. So this kind of excuse are not acceptable, that we don't have the MSDS or our purchase department didn't take the MSDS. MSDS are all available on the internet. But ideally, you should use the MSDS which is being developed by the manufacturer of this chemical or the material itself. Then another thing we discuss, the responsibility of manufacturer and the responsibility of employer is that to have the label available, right? This label is also a classification. If you can just write we call it, I just forget the name of the standard, GHS, Global Harmonized Standard, GHS. This GHS, Global Harmonized Standard, this Global Harmonized Standard is now being developed, because what happened that before MSDS and labels, they were different for each country. Americans are developing the MSDS and the labels in their format. UK people are developing these in their format. European countries, they are developing it in their format. So then finally all the countries, they have agreed on the point that we will develop the MSDS and this GHS, as per GHS, we will be developing the MSDS and the labeling system. So now if the chemical is being imported from UK or USA or from any European country, it will have the same format of MSDS and same format of label. So this diamond which you can see on the MSDS, it is being, this picture on the right side is the, we call it NFPA diamond. This NFPA diamond, sometimes have you seen that when the bowser of chemicals or the petrols or the benzene is going, there is a, this only, they have this NFPA diamond available and there's a rating. So sometimes you don't know what is the purpose of this red, blue and yellow color. So just for your information, this is called NFPA diamond and it has certain meaning. For example, if the color is blue and the rating is 3 or 4, which means that it is extremely dangerous. If it is 0, the health hazard with this chemical, if this uh, this label or this NFPA diamond is going to be pasted on any of the material, which means that it is going to give you the properties of this material, the major properties of this material. So blue color shows the health hazard, red color shows the fire hazard, yellow color shows the instability. Why it shows the instability? Because many of the chemicals are stable at the normal condition. So it shows the instability. And why it is any specific hazard which you can mention. For example, if it is an oxidizer or if it is acid or alkali or corrosive, or no use of water or radiation. So this is open for you, for the employer. So if there is any special hazard, they can mention it. So this is the format of our MSDS, and also in the video we will show you what is the format of HCS label, right? Let's have this video, and after that we will take the break, so don't get much bored. This is video, I think it is also in the folder which we have provided to you. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Many of 25 pounds. So manual handling is one of the major cause of accidents, which cause you injuries and ill health. The most common example of manual handling we can see in cement industries, we can see in fertilizer industries, where we have the bags like 50 kg, like 25 kg. I used to go in many fertilizer companies, in cement companies. The whole process is like automatic, very less human, involvement in there during the processes. But when it comes to uh, you know keeping the bags into the containers or into the trailers, it is all like, it is all like the manual handling, because they can keep uh, uh, packaging, and they can use the conveyors to displace from one point to another point. But at the end of the day, when they are required to keep in the trawlers, they are required to keep in the different lorries. It is a manual handling, and the good control about manual handling is to have this activity, to have the with the to perform this activity with the teams. So 15 minutes one of the team will do, and then the next 15 minutes other team will do this activity. Nowadays robots are coming in the companies. We have seen the robots are working, they are lifting the manuals, but robot is going to perform the fixed activity. There are some merits of using robots, but there are at the same time some demerits of using robot. So the companies still, they prefer to have this kind of activity, which because the size of trailer is not fixed all the time. The design of the trailer most of the time is not fixed, although sometimes the companies, they define the standards, but still it's better that they use the manual handling rather than using any other means of lifting. So they keep up to the trailer, they can use the conveyors, they can use the forklifts, they can put into the pallets and they can keep near the trailer. But in the at the end, in the trailer, most of the time we have seen they have to put directly on the trailer surface, and which is being done through manual handling. So when we are going to perform the activity of manual handling, especially the lifting, we need to have one thing very clear in our mind, to have the lifting plan. This lifting plan, it is not necessary to have in the form of written, but when we are dealing with the cranes, when we are dealing with the heavy lifting, this lifting plan, it becomes mandatory to have in the form of document. But when we are lifting something and from one place to another place, this lifting plan will be in our mind. So what we need to do when we are going to perform the lifting, the first thing, we need to make sure that where we have to take out the load. It might be possible that we have to take the load by using stairs. It might be possible that the way which we are going to follow to lift this load from one place to another place, it has improper surface, it has wet surface, it has sharp edges. So we need to see that what are the conditions where we are lifting the load, or where we are going to displace the load from one place to another. These factors are very important, that we should be clear to our destination. If we are unclear where we need to go, it might be possible that after some time we need to stop, we need to take the break, and then we will continue. And it might be possible if uh, the surface on which we are walking with the load, if it is uneven, or if it has some other obstacles, this can cause us falling of the load, and we can also get injured due to this falling of the load. So once we are going to lift the load, the first thing, we need to have a clear plan available, and then we will be, you can see in the picture, all the steps are there. The main thing in all the steps, that our back should be straight. Sometimes we are lifting the load in a very wrong direction, that we are going to take the load directly, and our back is going to have the full curve. This curve, it is a very dangerous position, where your discs are going to be displaced in and the back ache is a very dangerous ache, and it goes very very slowly. It takes lot of time, and once you have the backache, in someone in your family, you can ask them. It becomes sometime when it is especially in the winter season, when you are with the cold. So even if this back pain was occurred during one time in your childhood, still the people, they feel that we have this back pain in our backs. So these kind of activities, our very small considerations, our small good practices can make us, they can make us a very good impact on our health. And if we are not going to follow, then they can make us very uh, adverse effect on our health, with regards to health and health, and as well as injury as well. And when we are going to take the load, when we are walking with the load, it is recommended that this load should be close to our body. And if you are having tummy like me, so you can put the load on your tummy, no problem, and then walk with the load. And when you are going to place the load, it should be done in 2 steps, if possible 2 steps. That on first step you will keep the load, and in second step, from that surface or that table or that platform, you will keep the load on ground, rather than to keep it directly on the ground. So these are some of the precautions for manual handling which we need to carry out. When you are using the forklift mechanically, when we are going to, when the material is more than 50 pounds, or when we are not be able to perform the manual hand activities, or even if we can do the manual handling, but if we have the possibilities available to use the mechanical means, then we should always use the mechanical means. For example, simple hand trolleys, right, hydraulic trolleys, forklifts. These are all possibilities, and we have seen in companies, the workers, the staff, they use it very frequently for their normal operations. Even if you see the person who are involved in the carrier of these mineral water, they keep these cans on their trolleys, like four cans, and it becomes very easier for the transportation and also for the lifting purpose. So we need to see that whenever it is possible, we should use the mechanical means for the transportation of load from one place to another. And the one of the most common is the forklift. So whenever we are using the forklift, we need to carry out some precautions, which you will be doing in the groups. These are some kinds of forklift which the companies are using time to time for the various operations. Some of the forklifts are supporting, the height level when they are using in the warehouse. Some of the forklifts are going to be, operate for the very enclosed area where you have less space, then you are using forklift. Some of the forklifts are normal use. In general, there are three kind of forklifts which are being used in the industries. Uh, the most common type is the gas operating forklift, where we have the gas cylinder available in the forklift. But these gas cylinder forklift, these are not recommended for the food and pharmaceutical companies because they have the smoke, right? So another classification of forklift by means of their fuel is the diesel operated. Whenever you will find that you have the open area and the lifting is very heavy, so the forklift which is being used is the diesel operated forklift. Diesel operated forklifts are very efficient and very fast as compared to the battery and the gas type forklift, but at the same time they are having a lot of smoke. So whenever we have the lifting activities, transportation is going on the open area, then we recommend and we can use the diesel operated. But indoor, whenever we have the for example, air conditioner operations area, or where the smoke is going to be stay within the facility, so in this kind of area, diesel operated is not allowed. And especially in the food and pharmaceutical companies, even in the warehousing of food and pharmaceutical companies, the diesel operated forklifts are not allowed. We have seen this in one of our client is like warehouse. So they have more than 40 forklifts. So whenever they are using the forklift in the outer areas where they have to put the weight, the cartons on the trailer, they are using the diesel based forklift. And they have also storing the food items, dry and ice. They have the ice rooms available. So in these cold rooms and in the food areas, they are using the battery operated. So the third type is the battery operated, uh, which is not very fast. And forklift should not be fast, I mean, but they are not be able to handle very heavy items, but they are very good because they don't have noise and they don't have smoke. Very light smoke is there with the battery operated. But the major hazard with this kind of forklift are the battery itself, battery charging. Because you can see, if you can see this picture, this kind of forklift are having battery. So this kind of forklift are having battery on their back, and when you are going to charge the battery, you have to take out this battery, you need to remove this battery. Sometimes 2-3 batteries, like in our cars it is very small battery, but if you see the trucks, they have the big batteries. Similarly, the forklift who is depending totally on the battery, so their batteries are dry batteries and they are very uh, heavy batteries. So they need to take out the battery from the forklift and put on the charging. And this charging area, it is also a very hazardous area because high voltage source of ignitions are there. High voltage source are there, so which means the sources of ignitions are there. Sometimes if they are not using the dry batteries, they have the normal acid batteries. So there is a vapors coming out from when the battery is going to be charged. So this become very dangerous, and we have seen a couple of accidents in the battery operating area. And also again, manual handling hazard is always there when they are dismantling the batteries from their forklift, or they are again putting the batteries on the forklift. So manual handling is also there. So these are some of the classification of forklift and some of the hazards. But in detail, I'll ask you guys to open in your book about the safe power truck and safe crane operations. So the precautions which we are going to have while we are operating the forklift, and the precautions what we are going to take when we are operating the cranes, you will be discussing into two groups, right? So I'm going to divide you guys into two groups so you can discuss and come up with some important points. For example, 5 points are enough for each, which you think are more important, right, guys? Yes, guys, available? Sleeping?
No, we are here. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good, good, good.
Yeah, not too much sleeping.
Okay, not too much, but still sleep.
No, we are fine.
Yeah, still alive.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so now we will make you divide into two groups. So guys, you will be discussing about the safety precautions for the forklift, right? While it is in operating condition or while it is inspection condition, you will be discussing about the forklift precaution. Make it 5 or 6 important points, not too much needed. Okay? How much he can perform and what is his health capability to perform the assigned task. Risk factor inherent in the task which he is going to perform. Maybe he's performing the task, repetitive task. He's performing the manual handling task. He is performing the task. For example, we have also seen in the pharmaceutical companies when they have the injections, ampoules, where they are manufacturing the ampoules or injections. There are some people or inspectors, quality inspectors, who are doing the inspections. So they are required to focus all the time on the small bottles. So these kind of activities, they need you very focused all the time. And if you are going to ignore for some time, there could be a very big issue for the company product and also for the patient if there is any foreign particle is available in this ampule or injection. So similarly, the risk factors inherent in the environment. For example, if you are working in sunlight or you are working in the dump area or in the rainy area, these all risk factors are contributing to the ergonomics. Ergonomics are not only those things which when we are sitting on the computer, but any workplace where these kind of hazards are possible, we can say that ergonomics issues are possible. MSDs are the group of disorder. For example, carpal tunnel syndrome. You can see the picture of carpal tunnel syndrome, and this hand when we are using too much keyboard, when you are using too much mobile for WhatsApp, writing all the time. So you can have carpal tunnel syndrome, especially this are common with the laptop, with the computer keyboard activities. And similarly, when we don't have a good postures available while we are working or performing the task, we can have this tension neck syndrome. This tension neck syndrome, you will find this disease is very common in like those professionals who are like IT, involved in the IT, who are in the finance department, those who are having more interaction or all the time their job is computer based. So these kind of people, they have carpal tunnel syndrome, they have tension neck syndrome all the time. And low back pain is possible when you are dealing with the manual handling or your sitting postures are not okay. MSDs are often confused with ergonomics. For ergonomics is the science of fitting workplace condition to the job demands, to the capabilities of worker, right? And MSDs are the, for example, in other words, we can say MSDs are the problem and ergonomic is the solution. That's why now you will get the idea why they are designing the ergonomic friendly furnitures. So when you are sitting, these furnitures, these chairs, these couches, these tables, you can adjust them. These are not the fixed design. These are adjustable, so everyone can adjust them according to their need. MSDs, the contributing factors you and your employer should be aware include awkward postures, repetitive motions, and pressure points. For example, local contact stress and vibration. Here we have very good example of those drivers who are operating the dumpers, who are operating the trailers. You can see that they are all the time they are having vibrations, and that's why whenever you will see the dumper the dumper drivers, they are very strong, and 99% you will find them Pathan Khan, because mashallah they have very strong body, and these kind of vibrations or pressures, they are not going to have too much impact on their health. So that's why uh, these kind of activities which involve vibration, for example healthy, for example drilling activities, those who are dealing with the cranes, those who are dealing with the uh, hilly areas, mountaining areas, they are having these kind of activities all the time, and due to which the local pressure point you can see in the picture there, these are all our pressure points where we can have the impact due to the vibration or due to the forceful exertions and due to the repetitive motions. So there are also environmental factors associated with the workplace that can cause the problem. For example, extreme high temperature can increase the rate of at which the body will fatigue, and exposure of hands and feet to the cold temperature can decrease the blood flow, muscle strength, and manual dexterity. What is manual dexterity? Manual dexterity that you will not be able to carry something. Even sometimes, have you seen then some old people, their hands are all the time their hands are vibrating. Uh, the grip of the hands are becoming very you can say very loose, that they cannot handle even the spoon. So this is all causing due to manual dexterity, that the power in your hands are going to be reduced too much due to the MSD's issues. If these MSD's issues are due to your work, due to your job, we call them WMSDs. WMSDs are, for example, they can cause you. Uh, how do you know that you have the MSD's problem, a musculoskeletal disorder problem? By having such symptoms like pain, numbness, and tingling, reduce workers' productivity, lost time from work, temporary or permanent disability, inability to perform the job, and increase in workers' compensation. One thing very important to know that since last couple of years, if you search on the Google, you will find that most of the absenteeism in the companies for the workers are not due to the injury issues. Most of the time, the workers are getting absent due to the ill health issues. So the companies, they focus too much nowadays on the safety side, physical, to protect them from the safety. But still, the health side is very weak because most of the time it happens due to the lack of knowledge. Because we, as a safety manager, we don't have such qualification which can give us the detailed information about the health issues. For example, in OSHA, you can see that 80% of your course is discussing about the safety issues rather than health issues. Similarly, we are discussing the health issues, but in a very lighter way. Similarly, in the other courses, we have the same thing. So for the health issues, there are uh, what we call it, industrial hygienists are there. Some companies in oil and gas, they use the doctors for this purpose, so they can see the health issues, they can see the health hazards, and they can recommend it the precautions and the control. Right? Any question?
No, please continue.
Okay, let's have the video. It is not only the contractor who is going to get charged, but it is also the responsibility of client to make sure that all the controls are being applied. In Aramco, in SABIC and oil and gas sector, it is a very tough activity to get the permit, because they make sure that you have applied all the controls. Sometimes when you are using rental equipments, rental people for some specific task, it takes 4 hours, 6 hours, sometimes days to issue the permit from their side, because when they are issuing the permit, which means that they are also taking the responsibility in case of any accident. So permit is a very good control. It allows both the party to do the risk assessment, to perform the inspection of the site. Sometime with the one permit, you will have multiple documents. For example, if you are using the cranes to perform the activities, so you can involve as a part of your permit documents like third-party inspection of crane, third-party inspection of crane driver, the rigor documentations like risk assessment, JSA, JHA. These are all the part of our permit. Sometimes the companies, they go on second stage. For example, they ask, okay, let's have the calibration inspection certificates to be also attached with the permit. So permit is a very strong document which is going to cover many aspects. Internationally, or OSHA does not define any specific types of permit. It varies from organization to organization depending on the depending on their work. The most common type of permits are hold permit, which you are going to use for any of a normal maintenance activity, which does not require any hot job. Hot job are those jobs which involve some ignition, for example, welding, cutting, grinding. These are all hot jobs. So second type of permit is the hot permit. Well, first type is the cold, second type is the hot permit, which involves any cutting, grinding, welding activities. You make sure that the controls are applied while you are performing this activity. And then we have permit to work at height, permit to work in confined space, crane operations permit to work. So there are many types of permit to work are available. There is no sharing. I think there is sharing. Let me share. I'm on the first slide now. So permit to work, there are many kind of permit to work, but it all depends that what is your need, right? What is your need? Because it might be possible that for oil and gas, they need 5 types of permit, and you are not working in oil and gas, so you are using only cold work permit, hot work permit, right? So that's why we need to have very the procedure available for permit to work, and we need to apply this control about permit to work. Normally permit to work is being issued for limited duration of time. Maximum we have it for 8 hours, and within 8 hours sometimes you need to have the inspections on hourly basis or 2 hourly basis, depending on the criticality of the task. For example, if you are using the permit in confined space, so maybe after every half an hour, after every hour, you have to check the you have to perform the gas testing. Similarly, permit, you can have the blanket permit if you want to use it for more than 8 hours, but in this case again a thorough inspection will be carried out, and then you will have the same permit continuation. But normally what we have seen that one permit cannot be issued for more than 24 hours. So after 24 hours, you have to use the next permit. You have to get issue the new permit. And also sometimes the conditions required that, for example, when you start the work, it was a normal condition, and with the after some time there was a raining started or there is some storm started. So in this case, we need to again review the conditions of our permit, and we need to immediate hold our activities and again review the conditions in our permit, and then we will issue the permit. A very good control about permit, I have seen in many companies that they link the permit with the invoice. For example, if they are using contractors for some activities, they say, okay, first when you are bringing the invoice for the payment, then also submit the close permit. So it's a very good control. When the permit is going to be closed, which means your client or your operations department or whoever it is, they are agree or they are satisfied with your work, and then they are going to close the permit. Otherwise, they will not close the work permit. So in companies, we have also seen that they do the audits of permit, that how many permits are being closed in 1 quarter and how many permits are still open, and if they are still open, why they are open, what is the reason, or what is the problems or hurdles which are not allowing permit to close. So permit are very important and permit are very good control, in short, right? So this is the introduction about the permit. Let's have the confined space. Any question about permit?
Here.
No.
Okay, very good. Confined space. What is confined space? OSHA defines the confined space that is large enough and configured so an employee can enter and perform the assigned task. So what do you think confined space is? By the way, it's hole or it's opening?
Opening.
Opening. Very good. Because a person can go, right? So
Yes.
confined space is large enough and configured so an employee can enter and assign and he can perform the assigned task. And it has limited or restricted means or for entry and exit. Sometimes there is only one entry, which is also being used for the exit purpose. Sometimes if it has more than one entry and exit, it is much better. And this is not designed for continuous occupancy. You cannot say that I work in confined space. You cannot say that my office is in confined space. So whenever you are using the confined space, you will be using this confined space for a very limited period of time, and then you will go out and
Best example would be maintenance of boilers.
Very good. Maintenance of boilers, maintenance of turbines. Similarly, if you are going to inside the
Vessels and all.
Vessels, silos, in your cable trays, right? In the excavation areas, these are all confined space. So more than 4 feet in depth is considered as confined space. A permit space, permit required confined space is the space that has one or more the following characteristics. What are these characteristics? Contains or has potential hazardous atmosphere. The major risk about the confined space is the atmosphere. Very important. Many of the deaths in confined space are due to the hazardous atmosphere. In India, 2 years back, there was an accident that 3 workers were performing the job in confined space, and there was one of the whole watch. When they were performing the job, after some time, there was no contact between the inside workers and the outside worker. So that fire watch, he get worried what happened, and he went inside the confined space to check what's going on. So after some time, he was not be able to come home. So when the manager of the activity, he saw this kind of issue, so he tried to help them, and he went inside by himself, and that manager was also trapped. So within couple of minutes, there were 5 casualties on the same project. So confined space is very dangerous. If you go to YouTube and you will write the videos of confined space, you will find many confined space deaths videos. So confined space, the major hazard is about the atmosphere, because the atmosphere, inside atmosphere, we don't know what's going on inside, right? What are the poisonous gases inside? What is the oxygen level inside? So we need to check it before we are going to enter. And we have seen that many of the companies where they don't have the system for meters, gas testers, they don't check it, and they just went for some time, and if they are be able to take the breath normally, they say, okay, this is okay, you can go and you can perform. Sometimes confined space is normal for work, for the normal task. But if in the same confined space, if welding, cutting, where the fumes are there is going on, this become very hazardous, right? So there is a chance for any of the accident which can cause you. So then we have, apart from the hazardous atmosphere, we have potential for engulfing the entrant. For example, a person or the persons who are going inside, they can get trapped. There is also internal configuration, such an entrant can be trapped or asphyxiately by inwardly by converging the walls. For example, he can get due to the reduction of oxygen, he was not be able to breathe normally, and he can fall in the confined space. The other serious safety and health hazards are also existing in confined space. The best examples of confined space, as we already discussed, like manholes into the severe, grain silos, boilers, trenches, etc. Atmospheric testing. What is the atmospheric testing? And atmospheric testing is one of the major part for confined space. Before entering in the confined space, we need to perform the atmospheric testing. This can include the flammable gas, vapor or mist in excess of 10% of its lower flammable limit, airborne combustible dust at a concentration that meets or exceeds its LFL, which is lower flammable limit, atmospheric oxygen concentration below 19.5 and above 23.5. So these are all hazardous conditions, and any other atmospheric condition that is immediately dangerous to life and health. Immediately dangerous to life and health is the situation where a person can, for example, our confined space, where a person can trap, or he's working at height, he's working in confined space where there is a certain possibility that he can get accident and he can get the death. So IDLH, we also call it IDLH, any condition that poses an immediate or delayed threat to the life, or that could cause irreversible adverse health effect, or that would interfere with an individual ability to escape unaided, right? If he is not be able to escape unaided, and that's why we have the with the confined space, when the people are working into the confined space, they are using lanyard for full body harness. So in case if they are not be able to come out, they can be taken out by means of retrieval service. We call it retrieval service. Retrieval service are the equipment including a retrieval line, chest or full body harness, wristlets if appropriate, and lifting device or anchor, used for the non-entry rescue for persons from permitted space. So in case if the persons who are entering in the confined space, or they are working in the confined space, they get involved, they get trapped in this condition, no need for the outside people to go inside, they can take them out by means of retrieval services. What is rescue service? A person, for example, fire watch or the whole watch, these are the rescue service who are having eye on the people who are working in the confined space. So in case of any emergency or danger, they are going to rescue them. Oxygen deficient atmosphere, if it is less than 19.5 by volume, we call it oxygen deficient atmosphere, and if it is more than 23.5, we call it oxygen enriched atmosphere. So our oxygen should be in between 19.5 and 23.5, otherwise in both cases it is not good for the human health. Prohibited condition, any condition in a permit in a space that is not allowed by the permit during the period when it is authorized. So whenever there is any it is the normal condition which is not allowed for everyone, only it is allowed for the people who are working in the confined space, we call it prohibited condition, and in this condition nobody is allowed to work under the confined space. Can you remove these lines from the slides, whoever is done? Otherwise I have to find the option where it is. Okay, you can see that they are working in a confined space. In construction, 1926 code, which is for the construction, it requires that if the excavation is 4 feet deep, we call it, we are going to consider it as confined space, and whenever it is 4 feet in depth, we need to do the atmospheric testing. Nowadays, atmospheric testing meters are available. We will discuss in next slide. The confined space, apart from atmospheric hazard, there is another hazard. There are many other hazards which are possible in the confined space. For example, electrical equipment, maybe there is a motor, or there is a pump, or there are loose wires, loose sockets, naked naked wires, energized wires are there, because in confined space, most of the time contractor think that nobody is going there, so many of the things they leave as it is. Sometimes there is too much problem of housekeeping, mechanical equipment are there. Sometimes there is no lighting system available in the confined space. Biohazards, for example, rats, for example, snakes, for example, some other pesticides are possible in the confined space. Claustrophobia, definitely when the people are going in a confined space and there is no lighting, they get fear of loneliness, they get fear of darkness, they get fear. They sometimes they are having too much problem with these kind of things. Similarly, noise hazard is there, radiation hazard is there, and temperature, because in confined space, if you don't have a proper ventilation system, then temperature for human body, it becomes very disaster for the human body. So temperature is one of the hazard for confined space. We already discussed about the responsibility of employee and employer about the permit. We need to provide the ventilation by means of positive air pressure to the confined space. So you can see these blowers, they are going into the confined space. They are from one side, there is a pipe going, and which is providing them the ventilation, and they are taking out the air from the other hole. So it is always good that if you have more than one entry points for the confined space, so the air can properly circulate it. These are some of the air monitoring equipment. We can see that nowadays, these are very old pictures. Nowadays, we have a multi-gas detector, as you can see in this picture, which can measure at one time. They can measure oxygen, hazardous gases, flammable gases, and combustible dust. So within 1 meter gas tester, you can measure multi-gas, and these are also for the human. When the human or personnel are working in the confined space, before entrance, you will be using this kind of meter, okay, which is going to detect the gases and which is going to give you the percentage. But those people who are working in the confined space, this one is the meter which is going with them all the time, which remains on their shoulders or on the above of their pockets. So whenever there is any reduction in the oxygen, or whenever there is any reduction in the combustible dust or increase in the flammable gas, so this detector is going to start the beep. So the people who are working inside the confined space, they will know that now the situation is going to be worse, so they can come out easily. In old times, they also use the detector tubes for each gas. There was a different type of detector tube, but now this is old fashioned. Now all the companies, they are using detectors. Before, these gas detectors were very expensive, but nowadays these are also very available in a very reasonable pricing. And definitely now we have China everywhere, so the things are available within your range. So this is the format of confined space. We can see it is a documented format. There is no such requirement like MSDS that it should have 15 sections or 16 sections. You can design your own format of confined space, or you can search on the internet and use according to your own requirement. So what is confined space?